have been having problems with my finances since the moment I arrived here.
Of course you have, Kris. I mean, there's just always something chaotic happening with you, isn't there? Is this really just a mistake with your bank, or is there something else happening behind the scenes?
I've been in Colombia for over a month, but today I've got to go back to Alabama.
The mysterious court date fell through. Now it's something else. It really does feel like Kris is trying her very best to find an excuse to fly back home, doesn't it? But before we dive into all the suspicious things that Kris has dropped on us this week, let's go back to the start. So when we last saw Kris and Jeymi, they were both very emotional, having just got married. It was a lovely ceremony, and even though Kris couldn't understand any of it because it was all in Spanish, both ladies were over the moon.
Yesterday, Kris and I got married. I feel very happy and feel very comfortable and feel so good right now.
Jeymi seems like such a positive person. She's full of personality. She's very bubbly, full of energy, and she always has a great excitement for life. And what's interesting is we see glimpses of that in Kris too. The glitter, the outfits, the unicorn onesies, all this childish stuff. But the thing is, it just feels like there's always a dark cloud hovering over her. Even when she's happy, like after her wedding, you just know that sadness is right round the corner.
I told Jeymi I would cover the bills, but
I have been having problems with my finances since the moment I arrived here.
See what I mean? The very next day after getting married, there's a problem. And at this point, no one's really surprised. There's always something going on with Kris, isn't there? She always drops the most random information at the most random times. Like life-altering surgery at a pharmacy, or court dates at a furniture shop, or on this occasion, her financial issues in front of a zombie bus.
My bank froze my account because they thought somebody stole my identity.
just made me realize that I've got to start working towards getting financially stable to live here.
I don't know, I just can't shake that feeling that something isn't quite right with Kris's finances. First, we had that bizarre court case over a bike that she claimed was valued at $50,000, even though lots of bike experts claim it's nowhere near that valuation. Now we learn she has to go and see her bank in person. Usually, in most cases when you're abroad, a phone call to your bank with ID verification usually does the trick. But for whatever reason, Kris needs to see them face to face.
I have no desire to just go to work somewhere. So Jeymi and I have
Decided to start a business together.
Now, from what we were previously told, Kris mentioned that she had a little nest egg of savings. Plus, she was going to be selling her property back at home. That was supposed to provide for her and Jeymi for a while. And presumably, this is the money she'll use to invest in their business together. So, what's their big business idea? Well, the pair want to open a food truck.
Nos gustaría combinarnos nuestros estilos, es combinar como la comida americana y la comida venezolana, o sea...
Right, okay, well, given that Kris's savings will eventually run out, it's not the worst idea in the world to try and invest in a business with her wife. Now, Kris reveals that she and Jeymi both apparently have a passion for food. And it's not that I don't believe her, it's just we haven't seen any evidence of it at all. In fact, what we did see was Kris admitting that she was a very picky eater, eating basically none of the Colombian food served to her on their anniversary, which, for a supposed foodie, isn't a great start.
Our celebratory dinner consists of a huge platter of meats. I'm a really picky eater, and I'm like, oh heck, no, I'm not eating that.
But regardless, here they are shopping around looking to buy a food truck.
Este es muy interesante porque es un camión, un food truck escolar.
I love the zombie bus. There's weapons everywhere.
Now, the first food truck that they see that has everything that they'd need in a kitchen is priced at $10,000, but they don't like it. So, the agent shows them the zombie bus. This is priced at $20,000, but it captures their hearts immediately. And while Kris's excitement makes sense, what with all the weapons on the wall, I'm a bit surprised at Jeymi, because from what she's told us, this isn't her style at all.
I think we really need to decide exactly what we want to prepare as our menu first. I'm gonna need to know the costs of the products that we're gonna be using.
Now, while I get that you've got to start somewhere, it does feel like they're starting out all wrong. Like maybe lock in your menu and work out if it's financially viable before shopping around for a location, especially one that costs $20,000. Neither of these women appear to have any experience with running a business. And what scares me about that is starting a business takes a whole lot of commitment and dealing with pressure, both of which are things we know Kris isn't great at.
I really got caught up in my fairy tale dream of moving to Colombia, getting married, and starting a business together. I really didn't consider whether it was a practical dream or not.
And there it is. When the pressure ramps up, Kris has a habit of getting cold feet. Kris has made all of these promises to Jeymi about their future together. She's got Jeymi really excited about this business idea.
I'm really, really excited for the food truck.
But now it seems not only have the costs made Kris want to backtrack, she's also giving the impression that she's regretting her move to Colombia altogether.
The food trucks are a lot more expensive than what I thought they would be. If this dream fails, then I have nothing.
Sorry, Kris, but how cheap did you think a fully functioning food truck was going to be? I'm certainly not an expert, but for $10,000, a fully functioning kitchen with everything you could need to start your business did seem quite reasonable. I guess I'm just having trouble understanding what Kris's plan was when she moved to Colombia. If their plan has always been to start a food truck business, these costs shouldn't be a surprise to her. But judging by the way they're talking, just like with their rushed 9-day marriage, it also appears that they haven't given this a whole lot of thought either.
I'm gonna need to know the cost of the products that we're gonna be using in order to know how much it's gonna cost to run this and feed people daily.
Yeah, Business 101. Step 1, actually figure out what you're going to sell and how much it's going to cost. It all seemed great in theory, but now that it's becoming a bit more real, it's become very scary, and the pair decide to halt any decision making quite sensibly until they come up with a better plan.
It's definitely scary when it becomes realistic.
The thing is, we have yet another problem, because in order to make a plan, you actually need to sit down together and figure things out. However, Kris reveals she's leaving Colombia. She needs to go back to the States.
I've been having so many problems with my bank, and now on top of that, when I went to get my narcolepsy medicine refilled, I found out they don't have it here.
Just as things begin to get real, Kris is off again. Now, as if the issues with her bank weren't curious enough, Kris now also reveals that there's issues with her medication. Now, when it comes to Kris's medication, I know what a lot of people have to say, but let me just say this. Given the seriousness of her condition of her narcolepsy, I find it a bit strange that she didn't do more research before moving to Colombia. Like, what exactly is her thinking here? Is she planning to hop on a plane back to the States every time she needs a refill? Fortunately for Kris, her new wife appears to be very understanding.
Entiendo la situación, pero sí me siento muy triste. No, pues no hemos convivido mucho, pero entiendo que necesita el medicamento y que necesita arreglar las cosas con su banco.
But while Jeymi does appear to be supportive, she also doesn't seem to like the uncertainty. Sure, she'd like Kris to go back and figure everything out with her bank and her medication, but she'd also like to know when she can expect her to return. After all, this is meant to be their honeymoon period.
You come back in a few days?
I don't know exactly. I'm gonna try to do it fast. At the most, at the longest, 2 weeks.
Is that a reasonable time frame? Maybe I'm missing something here, but does it really take 2 weeks to pop into the bank, then head over to your doctor's? Surely she could even schedule both of those visits ahead of time. Maybe I'm just getting jaded with everything we've found out so far. But again, something just doesn't feel right here.
It's very difficult because you know half the ticket come back.
The reason I didn't buy it just a round trip is I didn't know exactly when I was going to be able to come back.
I've got my suspicions. I've got my eye on you, Kris. And it feels like Jeymi does too. She wants to be supportive, but judging by the threats that she issues, she also wants to remind Kris she's not going to put up with another of her disappearing acts. Take this as a warning, Kris.
Come back and sell all your clothes and your It's not funny, look at me.
I believe you.
Jeymi is obviously starting to let a little bit of insecurity creep in, and when they say their emotional farewell at the airport, with tears being shed, I can't help but feel that it is all a bit dramatic for what could only be a week apart. But then again, maybe deep down, something inside of her is screaming, there's been a few too many half-truths and lies here. Maybe this is another one.
I love. My big scare is she no come back.
From what we've seen, it certainly feels like Kris has a lot going on in her life. A lot that she hasn't necessarily been honest about. But fingers crossed, Jeymi won't have to sell her clothes, because I'm not exactly sure how much she'd get for them.